We are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names, and I've frozen, but we're going to have the big fun. No, I don't know if I did freeze, but I thought you did. Hey, anyway, Luke, what's happening?
Mate, I am really well right now. Surprisingly well.
That's what we want. That's the type of energy we need up in here.
Sick staff, but that's okay.
Spring has sprung. How good is it? No, like I love this warm weather. Like for me, you just give me a 25, 30 degrees every day, which some people would be horrified. But anyway, how you going, Joe? How you feeling? You feeling good?
Mate, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Pizza for dinner. And then we're going to talk property. We get a good opportunity to talk renovation. That is one of my favorite topics. This is the difference between other asset classes, like shares, for instance. You can't add value to a share. You have to rely on, the ASX people and the directors to add value. You can go buy a house, add value to it, and make money from that off the money that you've had as a deposit. So if you can do that in renovation, you're going to be onto a winner. That's if you do it correctly. Now, I know a lot of people that have done renovations and overcapitalized and wasted a lot of money. And that's kind of why we wanted to get Luke on, mate. You've done a number of renovation projects, and we'll dive all into that. But anyway, how are you, Jeff? How are you, mate?
And I'm excited. Very had a quite nice, relaxing, and productive day, which is always good times. But the reason. So you've done. Interestingly, you said you've done 45 plus. So when I hear the number 45 plus, I think 46 in my head. But I mean, I was going to round it up to 50, because then 50 plus you could have done 51 or 52. But anyway, no, I'm really well, and I'm excited for this session because we've had people talk about Renos. I'm here. Thanks for waiting for me. No, you're welcome. I think that's probably not Braden. It's probably Brendan Crawhall, perhaps. He typically says some quirky remarks. But no, we haven't had somebody on talk from go to woe with a renovation. So we've sort of done bits and pieces of that. So tonight we are going to have an absolute treat for the audience. We're going to talk about the things you should do before you even consider making an offer on a property. Once you've gotten to making an offer, what you then should need to be doing to make sure things are running smoothly, and where you can sort of tips and tricks and tactics. And we're going to show some examples. So I don't know, so much value in an hour and a half, how long it's going to run. So, but throw your questions, comments, and thoughts and criticisms if you want as well. If you don't like my shirt, then I don't know, maybe I can change it sometime. But no, let's get into quote of the week, gents. Please. Live. What's your quote, Luke?
Mine is actually from Proverbs. It's the book of Proverbs.
Oh,
chapter 11, verse 14.
The Bible.
The Bible, yeah. It says, "For a lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors." I love that. Without education, speaking on a platform like this, I think people can fall if we don't do our due diligence. But when you've got many people educated, you two gentlemen, other guest speakers that you've had, victory.
Well, that's one of the big. It's one of the big things that I see. I was actually having a conversation with an investor today. They wanted to do absolutely everything by themselves, and I'm like, great. When did you start looking? Oh, yeah, 2 years ago. Oh, wow. 2 years ago, you were ready to buy. You had finance. You were ready to, had my deposit, had my cash, and it just, nothing happened. It just didn't work out. I'm like, man, if you pulled the trigger and no, but I was just too busy. Well, there's people out there that exist to help you solve that problem. Like, so yeah, you're 100% right. Like if you get, and property managers, Luke, you're a property manager.
Yes.
You leverage like that. That's my top tip. You don't end the show just yet. Top tip, leverage your property managers because they know so much about the demographics, the people, the area, the trades, the costs, now good property managers do. But solid quote, mate. I like it.
It kind of reminds me of the that book, the what's that one? The Richest Man in Babylon. Like that whole like Gilgamesh. Yeah, where he talks about he's got all those sort of wisdom things about save. Yeah, like just so much wisdom in some of these sort of older texts. So yeah, great. So mine, Joe, is not quite as old as so should have gone as old, but he is an interesting sort of fellow. So Mr. Einstein said, "Strive not to be a person of success, but rather to be a person of value." So I mean, we're talking about adding value. So to me, if you can add value to whether it be your investing, whether it be your relationships, because I think property is mostly about adding value to people's lives and building those relationships. So if you can nail both of those, I think you're more than halfway there, I would say. Yeah.
Solid quote, mate.
Yeah. Haven't done Einstein yet. So what about you, Joe? What are you up to?
You've definitely quoted Einstein several times on this podcast. If anyone's listening,
definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
Very true. My quote of the week is by none other than Steve McKnight: "Buy problems, sell solutions."
Sell solutions. Yeah.
That is all it is. That is all renovation, property development is. Property renovation is. This is how you make money in property fast. If you want to go on the slow track, buy a set and forget property and buy and wait. If you want to add value quickly, because your goal is not to save up for a deposit for another, I don't know, how long does it take to save for a deposit? 6 years, 5 years to get your 100-ish grand. But if you can buy a property, renovate it, get some equity out of it, it can really help accelerate the journey. But the only thing is you got to think about is there's something wrong with that property. It's ugly. You can add a room, you can add value, but you can then get the equity out of that. Anyway, that is my quote of the week.
Yeah, interesting. I find it ironic that Steve actually told us about that quote thing about the using quotes of people that are alive, Joe, and you use Steve's quote. So if Steve sues us, that'd be pretty ironic, but maybe not. I'm sure.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. I'm sure he watches every show of ours.
I'm sure he said it on our podcast, so we're allowed to talk about things that are on our podcast. So don't sue us, Steve. We can't afford. We can't afford that.
Love it. How good's Reno though? Let's get cracking into that though. But first, speaking of bank balance, let's pay the bill, show. Let's get it happening.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
Very true.
We are back. So, yeah, I realized that I need to drop the comment for that. But introducing Luke, he's got a let's bring this in. Actually, we'll bring it in while I'm talking. So I even did some further sort of research on this is essentially my extent of my research. But Luke, I would say, is a property investing property manager, a property investing renovating who has a core focus on renos. I think I'm taking a bit of poetic license here, helping your investors to add value as well. Whether you've been in real estate for 13 years, though, which you look far too young to be in real estate for 13 years, and 10 years as a property manager. So you might have started when you're about sort of 13 or 14. So good on you. No, you're not that young. You're not 20. Thanks for that. But no, you've done. You put up there 45. I wrote in our thing 50 reno projects in the last 3 years. And I think the thing as well is you're not just somebody who helps. I suppose you have a holistic approach from planning it to budgeting it and making sure it's done efficiently and effectively. So the thing I love about you as well, a bit of a bonus for me is not bonus, but I see you as, I suppose, a family bloke, and you got a big focus on property is to help people achieve their goals. I'm sort of taking a bit of poetic license there again, but I think that sort of sums you up. So What's something that we missed there from your intro, Luke?
No, I think that's very kind of you. I did. Well, no, maybe I'm not lying. I was going to say I think I was doing a little bit of a lie on my Reno count. I've done 44 successfully. We're working on projects 45 and 46 at the moment. So
Okay.
technically,
Are they looking successful or are they looking on the rocks?
Oh, very
What are we
much so.
talking here?
Yeah, very much so. They should be good. One of them actually is our first fully furnished one as well.
Wow.
So we've not done a property
like
where
an Airbnb type of thing.
Not Airbnb. It'll be that sort of short to medium term market, but we're sort of catering towards company leases. Just where it's positioned, it'll be a neat, a neat grab for maybe the hospital. That'd be the ideal tenant. They take it. It's close enough to the hospitals.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
that's an interesting strategy.
Yeah, it's a trial, that one. That particular owner, she's one of our bigger clients, and she's sort of happy to test the waters a little bit. So all the furniture's there. It started getting assembled this week, actually. So we're very near finish that one.
We could probably just ask. I think we could ask about 3 or 4 questions off the back of that. But what I'm going to do is we love to ask people that sometimes we sort of mix it up. But usually we ask people's first proper investor. But we sort of, since it's Reno themed, I want to hear your favorite renovation project. Like, tell us all about it. It can be your own.
To be honest, my favorite one is probably that unit, particularly that we're doing at the moment. It's in a complex of 4. We've actually renovated the other 3 units already. The other 3 units were all standard sort of renos, real basic things, paint, floor coverings, electrical upgrades, light, window furnishings, those sorts of things. But this particular unit, the front unit of the complex of 4, it's got its own access, its own driveway, and we really saw an opportunity to make that a furnished property. There's a growing demand for it where we are, and I think that's been my favourite because thankfully the owner has been really happy for us to test the waters on creativity and potential things that might attract tenants for that property. So, like, just to give you an example, it's only 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, but we've been able to put in a functioning bar.
Wow.
Into the place. So
what sort of clientele are you appealing to with the bar? Like,
yeah,
you're going to be running like, you get a license or something, like a liquor license?
No. So it'll be. We think the core audience for that property is, we say that professional market. We're thinking it'll be potential hospital staff as overflow for the doctors and nurses that come in on those transition sort of periods. That could be a potential audience for us. The other audience is there's a big contract that's just been awarded for a number of years to a company in town. I don't know. I don't know if I can say. I won't say the company, but they're coming in to fix. They're coming to fix all the roads in Toowoomba, and they'll be here for a few years, fixing up a lot of the roads around our area. So they are looking for like 14 properties. We're sort of in cahoots with them on this particular property already. So
interesting.
Super interesting. So did you have access to all 4 properties? Like, does this one client own all 4 and it's in a complex of like, it's not separately titled, it's all strata titled together?
No, that's right. That's right. It's one complex, not strata titled. She purchased the property last year. We were sort of involved in that purchase, and then when she made the purchase, that's when we sort of started looking at, well, what can we do to improve, increase the rents, get the values up. And she's a bit of a flipper, so she buys stuff, renovates it, obviously rents the properties as well. But the plan for that particular quadplex is once that unit's finished inside, we'll move to outside, get all the outside tidied up, so repainted, driveways redone, landscaping, etc. And then we'll probably flip it, put it on the market early next year.
That's super interesting. One thing that actually, there's a question that's just popped up for someone who isn't a tradie. What advice would you give someone when deciding what to do yourself versus what to get something else to do? We'll answer that question, but what I found interesting about your little story there is that person is a renovator flipper, and they've hired you to help run the renovation project for them. So they've taken that extra step back to be just the project manager of project managers. Super interesting.
Are they renovated though, or do they usually just outsource? Like,
yeah. So I was going to say they're not a renovator themselves. Actually, a lady down in Melbourne, and even interstate. There you go. Yeah, interstate. I particularly like those arrangements because she really treats it as a numbers game.
Yeah.
You know, she's just all about the numbers. Yeah, she just takes all the emotion out of it and really lets us control the whole process. She just
makes dollars make sense.
Yeah, exactly right.
I hear the same thing from developers. They say, I don't like it when my client can go to site and say, why isn't this? What's this? What's this? What's that? It's nice to have that separation and trust your experts on it. Anyway, this session's about renovation 101. That's what I want to get. I was like, great, let's go straight away. What do we do when we're buying a renovator? But we got to take that step back to prepare to buy the renovator. So how do we take that step back? I think you've got some interesting slides to share. Where are we going, Jeff? You're a good driver.
Never had an accident.
Before before you even make the offer.
Yeah, these are some points that I put together. Anytime anyone starts talking to me about renovation stuff and wanting to take on a reno, I always say there's a couple of things you need to do before you seriously look at a renovator. I think people, you see the seasoned investors in this group say, it's a lot more work than you think. Yeah, TV shows sort of blow it out of proportion a bit. I think they make it seem like everyone can do it. But it is a bit of a challenge. So there's a couple of things that we'd recommend prior to doing, to committing to a renovation. So the first point I've got there, if it's a bit blurry, sorry, lads, I'll read them out quickly and then you just shut me up if you want to touch on something. But the first point is to identify the strongest target audience in the area and consider properties that would suit that audience. Property managers, buyers agents, they'll often know these questions, but I think that's the first thing. Gain an understanding of key trade lead times. So cabinet makers, tilers, electricians, plumbers, like what are you, how long are you going to be waiting if you're planning on doing a kitchen? What's the tiler's lead time like? Getting an idea of these lead times is really important because I think often people don't start thinking about that until they've got the place under contract.
Jeez. Yeah, and it's absolutely vital. It's the kind of questions I sort of neglected to ask back in 2016 when I was, and it's just, I'm glad we're talking about this because I don't know what other people in the group have done, but now you sort of having a few more under your belt, you sort of start to think, actually, crap, I need to start within the mind. What am I actually aiming to achieve? And what are the sort of steps in this process? Rather than just saying, okay, there's a property there, needs a bit of work on it. I'm going to buy it because it's a renovator. And then I'll think about all the steps after. It's kind of like you need to sort of start with the end in mind before you kind of even consider making an offer.
And how do you think about, so you've got like key area research here, but how do you think about the financial side of things? Because I feel like that's even before we do the research. We've got to make sure that the numbers actually work for a renovator. What kind of filters and overlays do you throw to see financially if it actually is going to work out?
So this is not particular areas that I would look at for someone because hopefully they've done that due diligence before they start talking to, say, someone like us, and hopefully they know going into the purchase process, okay, we know we can borrow this much, whatever that looks like. Like my first renovator, and I don't know if you can do this now, I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't understand all that space too much, but when I bought my second property, we pretty much funded the entire reno through refinancing. That's how we did our first renovation. We had a little bit of cash early on, but not a lot. And so we just did enough to warrant getting another valuation and then drew on the equity out of that to keep sort of moving and progressing the renovation forward.
Yeah.
So that's how we did it back then. Yeah, there you go. Great.
Yeah. So you go to and this is actually what a lot of people don't don't know or don't do is that they've built equity in their principal place of residence. They've got $200,000. And I mean, how much was the renovation in total cost at the end of the day?
Oh, that particular reno was about 67,000.
There you go.
All up.
Okay. So yeah, 70 grand. They just pull 70 grand out of their principal place, put it in an offset account, and then use it to run the renovation. But you use zero cash then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And ours was a little bit different. We were with CBA at the time, and they when we did it, we had to sort of take to them the plans and the quotes that we'd gathered. They didn't exactly release that money to us. They just approved it and held it. And each time we wanted to get work done, we just had someone we sent an invoice to, and they paid it, and then it just got added to our mortgage. So our mortgage incrementally increased each time we needed a bill paid, and we just had access to that money for a period of like 18 months or something.
Yeah, I think and working a bit in the broking space, because if once you start mentioning renovations or doing anything like that, particularly if it's structural, typically the bank will want to control the funds. So I'm not a little tip for new players. If you speak to your broker and just say, oh look, your broker should be, if you're investment savvy mortgage broker, they should be saying that it's the funds are for future investment purposes. So keep it broad. I'm not saying you should go and speak to your accountant and broker and make sure that it's all above board and all that. But the moment you start saying renovations, then the bank will want to say, okay, look, I want to see quotes for if you're knocking out a wall, then we want to control those funds and make sure that that's what the funds are used for. If you mention the word renovations, so yeah, just consider that conversation.
Yeah, be very cool. And also a great one is don't put anything in writing to your broker asking for those type of things, because all of their emails are tracked and they have to present things in a way. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're getting in a shady area, but
maybe a little
shady,
bit. Yeah,
but it's not.
Consider future investment purposes, because you never know. Like you might not decide to do a renovation. So I'm not suggesting, but yeah, I think there's But as soon as you call that, they will want to control the funds and I want to see invoice and all that sort of stuff. So, but the what I think Joe was getting at to take it back is we were talking about area research, Joe, to make sure that the numbers actually stack up based on if you buy X and
because like, look, for instance, I imagine people come to you with a renovation project and they're like, hey, I've just bought this property. I paid, I know it was a little, I know it was $50,000 over budget. I want to spend $100,000 on a reno and I reckon I'll get it for $800,000 and I bought it for $500,000. And then you just look at it and you're like, no, that's not reality. Unfortunately, you're not working in reality. Like, how do people find and invest? Like not how do they find it, but how do they kind of have that overlay of thinking about the renovation difference between what it is renovated at, what you buy it for before it's renovated, and what you sell it at after the reno?
Most of our clients come to us already having purchased the property. And so we don't really get too much influence in that initial period, right? So they'll come and they'll go, hey, I bought this property. I think it would make a great renovator. What do you think? Now, at that point, they're already committed to the purchase. And so it's a case of looking at
what would you prefer? Would you prefer they came to you before? Or
and what if they're wrong?
So look, there's definitely been some wrong people in the past. Decisions. Yeah, and look, we're really happy to tell them as well if we don't think it's right for renovation or if we think they've overspent. We just talked a guy out of a deal last week who was buying a property, and he was the best part of probably $40,000 over the money, and it still needed. It had been renovated mostly, but he still needed to do a bathroom, some external works, some landscaping improvements. And by the time we looked at that, I just said, you're going to be really, I think, overcommitted here, and you paid too much for the property, or he ended up terminating on the building and pest. So that was, I think that was good. Yeah. So it is absolutely my preference that if someone in our area started talking about a renovator, that they actually come to us, because often I think we can sort of see the vision with a property and what's going to make the most investment sense. Obviously, property managers is what we do. So we want to make sure that, people aren't going to overcapitalize, spend their money wisely. But we need to understand too, what is the actual purpose of that purchase? Are you in it to flip it? Okay, well, that strategy might actually look different than someone who's thinking long-term investment, because often, probably, the bulk of the renovation work that we do is tailored very much to the investor market or to the tenant audience. It's cost effective. It looks good. We don't go crazy with tile selections or, high-end stone selections in kitchens, anything like that. We keep things relatively simple, but they appear modern, fresh. They attract good tenants. That's a different conversation than, hey, I want to buy something, I want to flip it, try and make 150 grand the other side of it. That looks totally different. And
we'll bring this one up because I think it's important, and we probably should have mentioned it. But you're at Toowoomba Way, so southeast Queensland.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's 2 hours west of Brisbane.
Yeah, which do you see a lot of? It sounds like you must see a lot of renovations if you've done close to 50 in the last couple of years. So is that typically a thing you see a lot of people renovating, or there's opportunity to renovate in Toowoomba?
There has been good opportunity in Toowoomba for a few years now. We did one. That's sort of what I say started it, and then we did ours probably 5 years ago, and then Toowoomba historically has been a sort of fairly cruisy town. You guys might know this. It's never had huge peaks and troughs in its market. It's been fairly stable, consistent. But like just about all the country, COVID was pretty good for Toowoomba. There was some really strong growth, and then announcement of some pretty key infrastructure, airports and hospital upgrades in our region. That sort of, I think, piqued the interest of a lot of investors, and then naturally incredibly low vacancy rates has really driven rents up as well. So it's proven it's a pretty safe area to invest for a lot of people, and because a lot of those houses are older, there's sort of been this real push into renovators for investors. And I think too, one more thing on that is we noticed a real change when like the tax laws changed. When you buy a build new, you get the full depreciation benefits. But if you buy sort of an established property, you lose. Is it the cap? No, not the capital works. What's the other one?
Yeah, 2018, there's about depreciation. They sort of limited some what you could claim. I think I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, they sort of reduced what you could claim from depreciation. I think that was I don't know.
So there's like an added benefit as the investor if you're buying something and then renovating. Well, you can pick up the tax deductions that come with your investment spend. So
what do you typically see your smart property investor? Obviously, we can't give any financial tax advice, but what kind of things are they doing? Here's the disclaimer.
Great, love that.
It's my favorite. So how should people? How do you think about that situation when it comes to paying? Oh well, like I need to replace the oven, but should I have a tenant in place before I do that, or after I do that, or I need to fix the guttering? Like for instance, this was a situation for me, right? I had a light renovation on a property, and I did the minimal work required to get a tenant in place, but I needed to fix other things that were not so visual, like guttering, because that allowed me to fix the guttering at a later point because I would get a better tax deduction. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's how we encourage the reno too. I mean, like key areas like kitchens and bathrooms, where you got to do those. You can't really do them with tenants in place, so you naturally wait for vacancy and then get those areas done. But externally, if there's any works that need to be done, I mean, I don't sort of consider that in our reno well, but if there is gutters that need replacing or roofs or landscaping is another one where those things can be done while it's tenanted, so you can make get those things repaired or make those improvements when it's tenanted, then we absolutely encourage that.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest what are the top bang for your buck returns in terms of renovation? Like what should people be thinking about when they look at a deal, and how do we get our best bang for buck?
I think the first thing, and everyone says it's kitchens and bathrooms, they sell houses, but they are the bigger ticket expenses, right? Someone commented earlier on, Jeff, in the sort of the pre-post. Yeah, the pre-post. Someone commented on their, first impression. I think getting your first impression is actually pretty valuable. Look, it's you'd argue that the genuine value of it in a rental market that's just incredibly tight, but I think in terms of attracting volume for inquiries and those sort of things, we call it your hero shot. Whatever your first property is online. If you've got a picture of a house where the gardens are sort of a bit shitty and overgrown and not looking that good, or you've got something that's just had a new fence, picket fence that's been painted, the hedges are well manicured, those sorts of things, like they're relatively cost-effective options to do, and they will add what I call perceived value. But people look at it and go, oh, well, it looks great on the outside. It must be nicer. It just feels a lot nicer than the house it's got, a shit show of a front yard.
Well, that's all renovation is, isn't it? It's adding more in perceived value than actual cost.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all renovation is.
$2, spend $1, get $2 or $3 or whatever it is. And that's what I love about the ability
some good comments coming in. Paint's got to be up there, and mulch.
Yeah,
do you do much mulching?
We don't do too much gardening. Well, we do organise gardening stuff for people, but it's one of those things that we organise later when it's tenanted. There is one property, one of the examples I'll show you, where we did all the yard, and all the external works in that example. Like that there was, there was a lot of money spent there, but, mulching and outdoor paving and that sort of stuff. But usually we leave that till later on, so I don't even sort of consider that as part of a reno. It's just something we organise down the track. The other part of that question can sometimes be, is it actually worth doing it, for the tenancy, or is that an improvement you do maybe when you're thinking about selling the property, getting that?
So what is that actually? That was actually going to be one of my next questions. What does a renovation look and feel like when you're buy, reno, hold versus buy, reno, flip and sell to an owner occupier? Because that's kind of, would you say that that's the two options?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, the core of our audience is hold, right? So they're holding property, or at least flipping it with the envision to flip it to another investor. And so that process, like the case of the lady I spoke about, who's got the quadplex, right? Well, that's 4 units, not strata title. The likely buyer of that's going to have to be another investor. So
Rock's not going to buy 4.
Yeah, exactly. Highly unlikely that they'll buy 4. Even live in one
Big family,
and rent the other 3. So most of what we do is long term. For those reasons, we focus on kitchens, bathrooms, and the perceived value. So floor coverings, paints, those sorts of things. We don't put.
But does it change much?
Externally.
Like, does it change much if you're trying to sell it? Like what differences? And maybe the answer is there's no difference.
No, the difference is in your level of finish, I think. Like I said, if you're selling to an owner occupier, you're trying to tug on that emotional heartstring more, and you want it to feel a lot nicer. And so that's maybe when you start considering things like, upgraded tile selection, whether you, instead of using laminate bench tops, you're using stone, laminate cabinet doors, you're going to use 2-pack. You got to know your audience as well. I think you got to know who the likely buyer is, but that's the key thing that changes. You might put a little bit more spend into getting the layout bang on for an owner occupier versus the renter who's happy to, just have a shower over bath, for example.
Yeah. Let's just say somebody wants to. I know it sounds like you don't do a lot of these sort of buy and flip. I mean, they've got that quadplex, but let's say somebody wants to. How much? And it sounds like people already bought the property, so maybe you don't do or haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of this. But do you look at sort of comparable sales and sort of say, well, actually, there's one that sold 2 weeks ago that's a similar finish. We can get it to that for X amount and sort of reverse engineer and say there should be X amount of profit. Do you do much of that? Is that sort of, I think. Well,
interesting, because I'm doing that right now for a property that I've just purchased. So,
interesting.
So
how did that process go anyway? Or how's it going?
Yeah, so it's a house in Darling Heights in the end.
Yeah,
I
might be a bit of Darling Heights.
Some people, if they're watching this, they might have
Close
saw
to
I was
uni?
humming and ahhing about. No, not really, actually, which is probably a good thing,
Isn't it?
to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
A
I'm not a
good
local,
thing.
so there you go.
A good thing to flip it, because I'm flipping with the intention of it going to an owner occupier.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm making sure that what I do there, I'm being a bit bolder in my choices, my cabinet selections, my tile selections, those sorts of things. I'm trying to envisage, okay, what are people going to like for this property? So there's a bit more strategic planning going in. There's a lot of a landscape plan in that property. It's a cul-de-sac block, so it's a bit of a funny shaped backyard, and it's got a slope in the backyard. And so we've sort of been trying to plan what we can do strategically in the back there to visually improve the landscape and make it look good, feel good for someone, pull on those emotional heartstrings. So that's a different, it's just a different thought process. We know that we'll spend more. And coming back to your question, Jeff, is did we reverse sort of engineer the process? Yeah, we did. We sort of had a look and said, okay, well, we can see that growth's coming from the neighbouring suburb. People are sort of getting priced out of Carney Spring. If you know the Toowoomba area, Carney Springs performed pretty well. Darling Heights is sort of the next one behind Carney Spring in terms of growth and people being attracted to that suburb. You get a similar product, so you get your 4, 2 and 2 brick house there, and it sort of feels a bit modern. We went, well, let's have a look at what is selling in Darling Heights right now, but also what can we maybe compare in Carney Spring that has been renovated, that's nice, it's got that good, and what sort of prices were they achieving? Obviously, I'm a real estate agent, right? So I'm prepared to always test the market as well when we sell something. But I felt pretty confident. Like, we bought at 563. Our reno spend on this is probably going to sit somewhere around 36 to 40. We'll get a lot done for that.
Very affordable.
Bathroom, kitchen.
Yeah, we've got 2 bathrooms to do. That's going to be the real challenge, is the 2 bathrooms.
Wow.
And
2 bathrooms and a kitchen for 40.
Yeah.
Are you doing some of the work yourself, or how are you?
Yeah. So, look, I've got to be honest. I'm obviously doing what we've done for the last 5 years. We are well connected. So the guys that we work with regularly do look after me on pricing. Full disclosure.
People losing money to do this job. I mean, I feel I want to buy these tradies a bunch of beers, mate. I mean, or something, or whatever they drink.
I'm really interested in this group chat often to see what it costs people. We're having this conversation backstage, right? What people are actually paying to do renovation work. I know it changes place to place, but for whatever reason, we can get stuff done pretty good pricing. Like my kitchen, it was 10 grand for the cabinetry, and then the appliance. 10 grand for the cabinetry installed. I'm pulling out the old kitchen.
Completely.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I guess because some people are like, oh, you can save the carcass of the kitchen and just put new cabinet, doors on. You're saying you're completely brand new, tear through. Buy Reno Flip School is on Channel 9 right now. You could watch that, or you could watch this, but there's your choices. Learn about pretend Renos or real Renos. Which do you want? And we have no ads. Oh wait, yes we do. Actually, now that I think about that. But yeah, sorry. So $10,000 for a kitchen. What does that look like? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so
that sounds cheap.
It's cheap. We've looked at our audience. We're going like color. We've got a combination of sort of timber look and a black kitchen with white laminate bench tops. So we're not going to get too carried away in putting stone in there. We did and ah about it. We went, no, we're not going to do the stone. It was like an extra $4,000 for the fake stuff. And then we bought our appliance package. Now we have trade accounts set up all through town, so I think we get pretty good pricing on a lot of our product as well. And so we're sort of just leveraging that network. So 10 grand for it installed. I'm pulling out the old one. Obviously, I've got to dump the old one. So there's that sort of expense too that you might have to pay a trade ordinarily. But 10 grand for my kitchen. The laundry's getting done too, by the way.
Well, for that 10.
Yeah. No, sorry. In that 40, 30.
What do you need to do in the laundry? Are you just doing the tiles, or what's like putting a nice European? They do European kitchens up in Fulham?
So it's one of those like houses that's got a massive laundry, but it's only got the wash tub in it.
Ah,
that's it.
It's weird. So what do you
space?
Need like some cupboards or something? Yeah, put something.
Literally. So we're just putting overhead cupboards. Cupboard. We're ripping out the old trough because it's got a little bit of rust in it, and we'll just put a sink in bench. Again, it's all laminate. It's not going to be anything too crazy, but where we'll sort of add that perceived value is we've got pretty good tile selection. Kit Kat tiles all the rage, so we're using Kit Kat tiles in there. We do use reasonably good appliances because that seems to be a thing that people get hung up on. Which appliances are in the property, so we'll make sure we do that, and tapware as well.
And that's unreal. Well, look, someone's commented, I'm paying $23,000 for a new kitchen, including removal of a wall and 20 millimeter stone. So what'd you say? If you were going stone, it would be an extra 4,000?
Yeah, it would have been about 40. Yeah, it would have been about, what do they call it? The engineered stone, that 20 mil stuff.
That's what this person had as well. Yeah, there you go. So I want to. That sounds interesting. So you sort of factored in, and you reckon you're going to want to try and sell it. We should have talked before this. Well, I mean, I don't. I wouldn't necessarily. Depends on where your renovation is. Like if you're in Paddington, Sydney, then you want to make sure you're appealing to that sort of demographic and that audience.
Yeah,
actually, there's a plumber. Actually, there's a plumber on here. I think this is the one that made the comment. I charge $500 to $1,000 per fixture in bathroom supply and install. Do you charge differently per postcode? So, as a plumber, if you go to a really nice area, does it get more expensive to do the same job? We were talking about what were we saying? Postcode pricing increase.
Is this for Luke Donlan, or are you talking
not
about
for Luke? No, I'm asking
Munro?
the guy, the plumber.
Oh, his name's Luke as well. That's Luke Donlan.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's double Luke.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see because
I'm not a plumber.
I've got no, you're not a plumber. No, I've got friends that are electricians, and they do the exact. They're like, oh well, I'm going to Coogee. Great, it's X dollars. Oh, I'm going to this spot. Oh, it's Y dollars. But yeah, it's good to understand that. But one thing that you mentioned that highlighted to me is that you're going to trades. You're asking people to do the work for you, right? This $23,000 is just saying, great, you do all of that. But what you're saying to me is you're going and buying the equipment. So you're buying all the stuff and then going to the people to say install it, or how do you optimize that situation? How do we get the best bang for our buck?
Yeah. So again, right, this is just for our client audience. We've got trade accounts set up at tile places, flooring, joints, Bunnings might attend those sorts of places as well.
Yeah.
There's certain things we don't buy, like the cabinet maker, we don't buy his material. We don't know what he needs, so we just leave that to him, right, and how much he needs. But things like if we're doing a bathroom, we know that, okay, we can do a quick measure and work out how much sheeting we need for that bathroom. And so rather than our trades, there's a couple of things that we'll end up going into on this as well, but rather our trades sort of wasting time having to go and pick this stuff up, we'll work out together on site what they need. We'll order it because our client's given us some money already for the reno. So we'll order it on behalf of the client, get it delivered to site, so it's there for the tradies. So they've just got it on site, they can get stuck straight into it. There's no downtime in them waiting for material to arrive. So we'll make sure we get everything organised sort of as it's needed through the reno project, so it's on site for them so they don't have any downtime.
Have you had anything stolen? Because the reason I asked this is I spent thousands of dollars on blinds, a bench, a thing. I got everything delivered, and the place had no blinds because the blinds were in a box. And at nighttime, the walls were not on, and we did a full renovation, and I got everything delivered. And then the next day I go and there's nothing there. It all got stolen.
Did they break into the house, or was it left out?
They broke into the house. No. There were obviously walls, but I mean internal walls. Like you couldn't live in it, so no one was living in it. We put all the equipment in there, but we didn't have blinds up, so people could see that it was a vacant property with renovation, and it just got nicked. But do you think about? I've heard stories that happened to me. It's happened to other people I know.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that it doesn't happen?
We haven't had anyone break into places yet, thankfully, but we have had
That's
people steal stuff out of the skip bins. And
Well, it's in a skip bin. It's not stealing if it's out of a skip bin. That's free.
Yeah, it was sort of always planned for the dump. But like sometimes owners
taking
will
the
say
toilet.
to us, you know, like the old concrete laundry troughs.
Yeah.
Like the owners, we have heaps of them, right, in some of the bathroom, in some of the laundries we do. And the owners will be like, "Oh, keep that." A lot of rural owners keep that. I'll use that for my horses. And so we get it there. It's heavy as buggery. The guys put it out the front, and it's gone. You know, the next day. So like we've had those sorts of things get stolen, but nothing. No,
it's
couple of Arnold Schwarzeneggers pop along and carry it on their back. So let's get back to. I want to get back to some of these slides because what are the things you should be looking for? So let's kind of crystallize and put these in some dot points because there's so much value in a lot of things. But I want you to sort of tell us like what have you got? What have you put together for us?
So this sort of list is what if someone's coming to me and saying, "Hey, we're thinking about this property as a renovator." These are the things that I'm considering. So. What flooring and foundation are they working with? Is it slab? Is it on stumps like brick pillar stumps, timber stumps? Is it adjustable steel stumps? That's a really important one.
Is that because of the cost or what's the purpose? Why does that matter?
Yeah, so obviously if you're on slabs, a lot harder to reconfigure a room if you need to. And a lot of what we do, particularly in bathrooms, is we're reconfiguring to make it work the best in that space. Now, obviously if you're on a slab, it's really hard to do. But if you've got a timber floor with a bit of a crawl space, we can get underneath there. Well, it's often really easy to move plumbing within that footprint to sort of suit a better layout for the space. The reason I touched on brick pillar, timber stumps, adjustable steel, well, if it's got timber stumps, how susceptible is that property to movement? Is it level to begin with? Because they can create issues through the renovation process in terms of walls not being square. Adjustable steel, a lot of houses in Toowoomba are, sort of on stumps of some kind. A lot of slab houses, modern ones, but a lot of the ones that we do reno work on are on stumps of some description, mostly brick pillar or timber. Brick pillar is better to work with than timber, obviously, but it can still sometimes mean that we might have to do a bit of re-leveling to make sure we can get the wall square internally. You don't want to have to be replacing timber stumps because that's an expensive exercise, and re-leveling houses, that gets very costly quickly.
So when you think about this, like from a renovation standpoint, if someone comes to you, it fundamentally changes the makeup of the renovation that you're going to do, surely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and how much cost does it add? Like if we see two identical houses that we believe we can make the same amount of money on, you're saying maybe the slab's if you're trying to reconfigure the bathroom, you can't add plumbing work because you have to you have to drill in and hack out and build out the plumbing work. Rather, when it's on stumps, you can just go underneath the house.
You literally gut it, reconfigure it, suit it to how you want it to work. It's much, much easier. The big example that I like to give is, okay, well, if it's a house that's on brick pillar or adjustables versus timber, okay, well, if you want to renovate a house that's still on the original timber stumps, are you going to level that house? It'll be a couple of grand to level the house. Or are you going to have to replace the stumps? And replacing the timber stumps with the adjustable steels in our area is about $5.50 a stump. So some of those older houses might have 45 to 50 stumps underneath them. You do the maths, it's a pretty expensive exercise to re-stump a house.
Yeah, wow, that's getting really expensive.
Okay, nice. Okay, so if we're thinking about a renovation for a bathroom or something where we need to rejig and say, hey, I'm going to take this from a 3-bed 1-bath to a 4-bed 2-bath, it's going to be easier to think about. What's that?
Hopefully tile, I imagine, or like easy tile. Is that what?
Where we sort of go with that, as in, does this here, thinking about the stump arrangement, does that make it easier
that changes? Yeah, that changes what you're
definitely. Yeah, definitely. We don't do a lot of that anyway, to be transparent. Yeah. So we don't. It's not often that we'll go and add a bathroom or add another bedroom. occasionally we have done a couple. There's probably one I can show recently that we did, where we did end up adding a second bathroom. But again, we understood the audience and we thought that was a good value add in that house. But usually to add a whole another bathroom as well, that can add some cost too, because depending on where all your plumbing connections sit, as in how far you've got to get your plumbing to a certain point, well, that can be a cost. You then got to think about power, running additional power, that sort of stuff. So there's a couple of hurdles to jump through. It's why we don't usually recommend it in the investor world anyway.
Yeah, good comment that come up, I imagine, by Luke the plumber. Luke, in starting a bathroom reno at a house with a 1.5 meter gap underneath, which is massive, easiest reconfigure ever. Last one I did was 40 centimeters. Commando crawled in and out.
40 centimeters.
I love our plumbers.
Yeah.
Our plumber, actually, his name's Luke as well. The plumber that does our work, and he's an absolute champion of a bloke. I don't know that it's him himself getting out of the houses anymore, but some of the spaces are tight. One of the ones we're working on now probably doesn't have much more than 60 centimetre crawl space, but it's something and it's doable.
Yeah, it's the stuff nightmares are made of. But it's a good consideration for people that are starting to think about renovation. Starting to think about renovation is, I didn't even think it's a concrete slab, so I can't make it as easy as I could with a wooden pier. So that's an awesome little tip for beginners to just think, what is that bottom stuff made out of? What is the thing sitting on? Because it will fundamentally change the way that you renovate this thing.
Exactly right. So then another consideration. Oops,
with the concrete slab, does that just add costs? Like, I imagine you can probably do it, but you just need to cut through it, I imagine, if you're going to do it.
You can do it. Usually, we've done a couple on slab, but usually we just keep the configuration as it is. So whilst it might not be the most optimal layout for it, we're more inclined to suggest to an owner that they leave it as it is. Don't bother reconfiguring it. Just improves the look of it.
Yeah,
love it.
That's a solid tip. I like that one. What's the next one?
So talking about access to plumbing and electrical, is there a crawl space? We touched on that. But also asking the question is the home double story?
Why is that
That's
important?
a really important question. If you've got bathrooms or kitchens upstairs and you've got a potential look at replacing plumbing, well, it's all of a sudden you're not just...
It's expensive.
You're not you're not just replacing the kitchen and bathroom upstairs, but you potentially got to, if you want to reconfigure the layout, do you have to pull down the ceiling in the downstairs areas to redirect your plumbing or move that around? So that adds another cost to the reno. And so that stuff can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. Where's the meter box located? So the power meter box on the house, because if you're looking at adding anything to the property, how far do you have to run cable? How far, do you have to, if you're going to reconfigure, like I'll give you the example, that one I told you about where we added the second bathroom. Well, we actually had to move the meter box because the bathroom where we were putting it, the ensuite that we ended up adding, it was into, and where we wanted to put the ensuite tapware was basically directly behind the meter box. So that was an expensive cost to move that meter box. We repositioned it towards the front of the house. I think, off memory, it's about $6,000 to do that. But we did the numbers with it. There's value in this. It's still worth doing, but it's a cost that, if you're mindful of your reno spend, something you want to try and avoid if you can. You don't want to be moving meter boxes if you don't have to.
Yeah, that would suck. But I guess if it makes financial sense. One of the things, a bit of a furphy out there in the world, maybe it's not a furphy, good to get you to, they say spend 10% on a renovation of the house cost. So if it's a $500,000 house, you spend $50,000 on a renovation. If it's a $700,000, you spend $70,000 on a renovation. How do you think about like allocation of cost to the? How do we think about how should I like little rules like that, and this is why people love it. 10%. I just need to 10%. Is that the case, or how do you kind of think on the cost?
Look, that's a hard question to speak broadly on. How we think about cost is what is the best value for buck. What's going to get you the best return. In some later slides, I've talked about how we justify whether we think a reno is worth doing. Look, I don't necessarily think that, spend $1, you want to make $1 or $2 or $3. I don't think that exists so much anymore. We work on, if we can spend $1, can we make at least 50 cents on that dollar? That's what we work with. And sometimes it's more, but if it's not at least 50 cents on the dollar, then we go, oh, okay, well, that's not.
So you mean making $1.50 for $1? You say me making an extra 50 cents on what?
Yeah, exactly. Making a net 50 cents right on the dollar. Sorry,
not losing money.
Yeah.
Joe's worried. You're losing money. Yeah,
you have not sold me if you're losing money.
No.
We got the wrong guy for this one.
Yeah,
Jeff, what have you done? No, yeah, okay, $1.50. You spend $1, you get $1.50 back. Yeah, you're getting something back out of it. And this is where, like, I think flipping is. Like, I feel like when people start investing, they're like, great, I'm going to go house and land because that's where all the marketing and the media is. And then they start to dig in. Actually, house and land packages is not actually the best way. I want to add value through renovation. I've seen the block. And then they throw all this money at it and they don't get the return. There's no ROI there. But then they also think, oh, I'm going to flip houses. But flipping houses, when you factor in renovation costs, your purchasing costs, you've got your stamp duties, your legals, and then selling costs, it becomes very difficult to buy, renovate, and sell a house within 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, and actually getting that profit. So I think buy, reno, hold is a little bit more realistic for people. Yeah,
exactly right. And that, again, on that sort of principle I was saying, that's really focused around investors, right? If you're buying to flip, you're not going to be happy with making 50 cents. 50 cents. You're going to be shooting for more. So that's for investors. That's how we choose to look at it.
Yeah. So let's fly through some of these things to think about. So the wet areas, avoiding
wet areas positioned on external walls, or are they in the center of the house? And then
it's probably easier if it's on the external walls, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly right. Beyond just plumbing, you got to think about ventilation as well. Mold's a pretty big issue in the rental world right now, certainly in Queensland. I don't know what it's like in other states, but we deal with a lot of mold issues in properties, and so we want to know how easy is it to adequately vent a bathroom. It's going to be coming in as part of our minimum housing standards later.
How should we think about ventilation? Because it's I look at a house, I'm like, I don't think, oh my gosh, ventilation. What are some of the quick wins in ventilation that we can go for?
A quick one is anytime you vent or put an extraction fan in a bathroom or a laundry, for that matter, venting it to the soffit or right out of the roof space. Often we just think about venting it to the roof space. Look, there might be some rules and regulations in other areas about this, but in our area, it's just so long as it's vented, it's sort of adequate. The problem, and I just give the example with mold, right? Often, if the bathroom's on the external wall, it's usually the lowest pitch of the roof as well. It's where the roof's coming down, and so if you're venting straight up onto a ColourBond roof, all it's doing is it's condensing on the roof. The water's running down. It's sitting on the top of the ceiling sheet. It's creating mold. So that's a bit of a pain in the backside when that happens. Yeah. So
is that what happened to you, Jeff?
Well. I fix it, but
so we try and get it vented to the soffit so all that moisture and condensation can't form on the roof sheet. Sometimes it happens, just from climate as well. If you're cold climates, and warmer days.
Yeah. One of my quick wins is when you switch the light on, the fan goes on no matter what. You can't. There's no fan switch, light switch. It is turn the fan on, switch, that comes on. Because some people don't like the noise. Oh, I like the sound of rain when I'm showering. I think it makes
the bathroom colder.
Oh, well,
but it does. You need the heat lights, but then the heat lights break, and then it's annoying.
But
but draft stopper on your door, not a big deal.
But that's a great point. I mean, that helps me a lot. But I actually just vent to the roof. I don't do any fancy venting to the atmosphere. How much extra does it cost to go from the roof space into outside?
It's not a lot, to be honest. It's that what do you call it? It's not alfoil, but it's that corrugated sort of tubing stuff.
Yeah,
I just vent it there. Oh, it might be an extra $150, $200, like for our guys to do it.
Yeah, and then getting a tradesperson out there to assess the damage of, oh yeah, there's mold here. How much is a mold treatment actually? Like if there's mold in a bathroom or on a back wall or something like that.
Yeah, the guy that we use, his treatments like start a cheap ones like $650, and then they go up. Like we've done some pretty
$3,000, $5,000.
You know, some shockers. There's an old video on my Facebook page from like a few years back on one of our Reno projects. One where I used to trade under a different brand as a Harcourt's office, and we did videos of this place before we did the mold remediation. It was horrendous. That was a $4,000 job.
Wow.
So bad. Yeah, and the tenants were living in it because they were scared about saying anything because they'd get kicked out.
Jeez, wow.
Gosh.
That's scary though, like particularly if you have kids or whatever. But okay, so let's stay on point. There's so much more. So evidence of extensive renovation items. So you're not a fan of removing walls or room reconfigurations, moving kitchens and bathrooms. You're not a fan of that. Or
No, again, right in the investor space, it's about what can you do to keep the cost as low as you can, get best bang for your buck. There's been
How about adding
on
walls?
that,
What do you think about adding walls to create another bedroom?
Usually we take walls out. Again, right in some of the suburbs that we're renovating in, I think we're so accustomed to think, 4-bed 2-bath is the best combination, but I think it really comes down to knowing who your audience is, and in our area, right, there's the 4-person family household's pretty common. So mum, dad, 2 kids. And I think that is they are almost more happy to be in a 3-bed 2-bath and have 2 living as opposed to having the 4th bedroom. And we've done a couple of renovators where they have been 4-bed 2-bath 2-car, but only 1 living. And we know that there's more value in having a second living space than a 4th bedroom. And so we'll sometimes, open up that room and create sort of a second living space so it feels like a living space and not a small bedroom.
And in terms of value, what are you talking about from a valuation perspective or from a rental perspective? Again,
rental value, right? So anytime I talk this stuff, I'm mostly focused on the rental yield that it can deliver to our clients. I would sometimes argue that there's value in having that combination for resale purposes too, but again, it comes back to knowing the audience of the area.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because that's. I mean, adding a 4-bed, making a 3-bed 1-bath into a 4-bed 2-bath from a valuation perspective makes a far better way to go. But from a rental perspective, it still lifts the value, but there's definite ways that you could configure that in a way that maximizes a better return. Yeah.
So we talk about if we're going to spend an investor's money, and maybe this will help understand a bit more. If we're going to spend money, the investor's money, how can we get a good return on what they spend? The cash on cash return. So if they're going to spend $50,000, for example, we're encouraging our audience to see at least a 10% return on that money. So if you're going to spend $50,000, you want to see $5,000 a year in additional income. So it's almost, just call it $100 a week.
Yeah.
So, can you get $100 a week spending $50,000, and let's say the bathroom might cost us $10,000, but by the time you get to the top end of a budget, all of a sudden, you got to get more, right? So if you're going to spend $60,000, it's $6,000. That's you've got to jump pretty significantly in your weekly rent to be able to sort of get your 10% return on your money,
which is probably not going to happen.
And sometimes it's not doable. So certain suburbs, it's not doable. Like I said, whilst it might be great for, and that might be the argument from resale, right? Is if you're a flipper and you're trying to sell to an owner-occupier, okay, well, the actual cash-on-cash return from a rental perspective doesn't make sense. But to the owner-occupier, to that emotional buyer who will pay more for that product, maybe
they want 2 bathrooms because they've got 2 kids and they're trying to get ready in the morning, and next minute there's like 2 people lined up for the bathroom trying to have a shower, and it's annoying.
Yeah,
they want
exactly
that
right.
second bathroom. They need it. I'll pay for it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to avoid where we can reconfiguring to too extensively. We don't want to move a kitchen from one side of the house to the other. Keep it at the same spot, just make it work a bit better in the space.
Love it. Okay, well, we've got another couple of slides that's going to dive deeper into the renovation space before we jump. Yeah, how to manage this project and actually how to make money from it, because I see a lot of investors going out there and I'm going to do absolutely everything. I'm going to tear the wallpaper down. I'm going to install this. And then I've actually my next door neighbor, I said, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh, I've just bought a property. I'm like, oh, congratulations. Oh, look at this.
Are they still doing the reno, Joe?
Oh, mate, it's been like 6 months. And every single, like the way you've got to think about it, when you've got when you've got a 6% interest rate, every single day is costing you $150 every single day. So if you delay trades for a week, that is a massive cost to you. So I'm like, how's the rent going? Oh, mate, you have no idea. I'm like, oh, you must be very busy down there. No, I just can't get down there. I'm like, but 150. Like the clock's ticking, mate. You need to get on it. So how should we think about like project management? But before we go to that,
The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yields, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
Oh, there we go. Commercial property. Do you think about renovations for commercial property at all?
No, it's probably not something I've given too much thought for. We manage a bit of commercial stuff, but I'm certainly no expert in it, that's for sure.
It's a completely different world, right? Okay, cool. So what have we got here? We got another slide coming up. Tips and tricks to save you money. What a title. What are some of your golden rules? What are some of the golden tips that we should be thinking about here?
Yeah, so the first point's a really strong one, I think. And I don't know, I can't speak to all states. I'm Queensland, so I only know this in Queensland. But when you're making an offer, consider an early access clause. Early access basically just allows you access to the property before you settle. Usually it happens when you go unconditional. And sometimes you can do it where you can actually start working on a property, but most people aren't comfortable with that. And so if nothing else, if nothing else, the early access course.
Have you ever got that? Have you ever got someone? I mean, I deal with a lot of properties, and I try and get early access, and I try and negotiate this working on the project beforehand. But the conveyancer always says, no, this is too much risk, because if you start a renovation, you tear down a wall and then you can't get finance, or your settlement falls through, or whatever it is. That person's house is now less valuable. Have you actually gotten that?
We've got plenty of early access clauses, but not not for the purpose of renovation. I can think of
doing the work
that we've been able to make a start on. Everything else is just let us get our trades through plan, so that when settlement rolls around, we can get stuck into it straight away.
So how important is this? Because I think this is like an undervalued thing that people are like, oh yeah, it's a nice to have. It's a nice to have. How important actually, like how much of a value difference does it make to the bottom line for a reno project?
Well, you said it, Joe. Every day would say $150. I didn't know that, right? But let's assume it is $150. If you can avoid delays through the renovation process by having all your trades organised and sort of ready to pull the trigger or start work, as soon as it settles, you're saving. Your big picture, you'll save money. But you want to try and reduce those reno times right down.
Are there any tips for the average sort of person that might not be sort of organising a property manager who's, hopefully using a property manager is good at this sort of stuff anyway. But let's just pretend it's not, and the investors doing it themselves. Are there any tips to making sure you're getting trades motivated together and quotes, or what sort of have you seen people do that without?
Well, that comes back to what I said at the start, right? Before you make the offer, spend time networking, connecting with trades to find out what their lead times are like. And get an understanding of that. Like the relationship building with trades is, it's tricky. Like I said, I like to think we had a little bit of an upper hand because of what we do. But I started this business 5 years ago from nothing. And it took me probably 2 years to establish a really good trade network. So for the individual, I think you can still sort of achieve that much quicker. We were sort of thinking bigger picture, trying to service many clients and what those relationships look like. But if you start those conversations, having those conversations and trying to understand lead times prior to even making an offer, going unconditional on a property, I think that can save you a lot of time.
Yeah, understanding what is easily accessible and what isn't is foundational, because that changes what you're purchasing as well. Like if you know it's incredibly difficult to get someone that can, like a tiler, for instance, well, I'm not going to do many bathroom renovations. If this property needs a bathroom renovation, it's not something that I'm going to go ahead and purchasing. That's
exactly right.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I think, so you go.
I was going to say, what's a good way for somebody to vet a trade that they're actually good at what they're doing? Like, do you sort of ask for word of mouth, or are you Google reviews? Like Facebook?
Always asking. Like, a lot of people are using social media now, even the tradies, right? They might not be the most tech savvy guys, but they still will put, work that they're proud of on their social media. Maybe not as common for the guys that are flat out, but then that's also a red flag in itself, right? If they're just super busy, and perhaps maybe they're not the right person for you to use. You got to be careful. You don't want, exactly. You don't necessarily want the guy who's, can do the work tomorrow either, because maybe that's a question mark over his.
Are they new, or are they just nobody's using them?
Yeah. Like we started with some new people that were coming in. They'd worked for companies and then they came in and started their own things, and we trialed them. Admittedly, I trialed them on my own houses first. And so that's sort of how I built that for our clients. But I think a bit of research, social media, see what they're like, asking them, hey, have you got any work that we can see?
It's a great question here. If it's a chippy, ask to see how well looked after their chisels are. You can just imagine that conversation. Now, I know we're on a phone call, but can you just go onto FaceTime? Just show me your chisels, please. I just want to see how sharp they are. So where are some of the unlikely places to find good trades? Like, where are some of your secret spots?
Look, the one that I love is just like Facebook not marketplace, Facebook, the community pages, local community pages. That's like some of the best. Even still, occasionally we need someone like a service that, we know that our trades are committed on other projects, our regulars, and we need someone else. And I'm like, I'm not searching through Google, calling 16 different guys. I'll just put a post on the community page on Facebook. Hey, who's a great chippy, or whatever it is, who's a great gardener who can get a job done inside the next week. I'm happy to pay reasonable rates. People just flood it with whoever they want. So
actually, I know Steve, whose number's here, or I know John. That is a great little tip.
That's the quickest one, I think.
Another one's Airtasker, which is pretty good. But you need to pay Airtasker for the work, and you have to pay Airtasker, obviously. But That's a good little one. Gumtree as well, but groups.
I should have
groups are unreal.
Airtask. They should have used Airtasker for that furniture assembly at that unit.
That what?
That's what I should have
Is
done.
that?
I did it.
You should have got. You did it yourself.
No. I didn't do it myself. No, we paid a cabinet maker to do it. Actually, so we're paying cabinet maker.
What to put together a bloody IKEA?
Put together beds and couches and assemble all the furniture, tables, coffee tables, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, at least he's qualified.
Okay,
what are our other tips? What are some other golden tips?
I think just having concept sketches and plans ready to show your trades. I think that's helpful, like putting pen to paper and sort of drawing what you envisage for the space. And maybe if you're a first-time investor, doing a couple of sketches, and as you sort of start to do the projects, you'll sort of know what can be easily done and what can't. So just taking those in so they can sort of see your vision, and then they'll be able to step you through as to whether or not it's doable.
So what does that actually mean? Get drawings and draft it up. What does it actually look like?
Sketch it yourself. Tradies are skillful people, right? They know by looking at, often if you can draw reasonably well, I should say this, you can draw reasonably well. They'll get a general gist of what you're trying to achieve, certainly from a layout point of view. And we just used to start by drawing on an A4 bit of paper and say, hey, we want the bathroom to look something like this. And then they started saying, hey, we need to know a bit more information around drainage and this sort of stuff and blah, blah, blah. Tell us what you want that to look like and we'll see what we can make happen. But just literally sketching it yourself. You don't have to go and engage an architect or a draftsman or anything like that. Just start yourself, but you might have to, in the early days, provide a couple of drawings, particularly if you want to reconfigure a space.
Yeah, that's okay. Cool. Yeah, because I was thinking a full out sketch. I mean, I can't draw for anything, so that I may as well hire someone because it's not going to happen for me.
You'll be amazed at some of the bathrooms and kitchens that come to life just from a little basic drawing that we draw. We just give that to the trade, so we want it to look like this, and they just go, "Yeah, no worries, we'll make that happen."
Yeah, or they say, "No, that's not possible." An example is, I was recently doing a property where we were doing a renovation in the bathroom, where we had a bathroom and then we had a walk-in wardrobe that on the floor plan was actually really small, but in real life the floor plan was not to scale, and you could actually build an entire bathroom out of that. And we did that. We made it back. Yeah, took advantage of the plumbing on that side of things, and then and you say that actually we did draw it out. We drew it out on the floor plan and said toilet here, shower here, handrails here, plumbing here. And I guess
it doesn't have to be complicated. Just don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel.
We carry a little when we go to inspections of bath people, we carry a little laser measure, those little Bosch things. And so if we're going through a property and we'll just quickly record the size of a room down. Right, and we'll come back and draw it later. There's a great website, actually, floorplanner.com. It's a free website. Yeah, you can go on there and design your floor plans for free. You sign up. It's like a Swiss company. It's pretty cool. You can actually 3D as well. 3D, and you can put furniture in and do walkthroughs and stuff as well.
CAD. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Is it Turbo CAD or is this
floorplanner.com? I can't see what you're saying.
Floor planner. Okay, not floor plan.
Floor plan. Yeah, floorplanner.com.
Yeah, wow.
That's it. That's so the one. Cool. Yep. You just create a free account. You can only do sort of one drawing if you like, but you can add multiple levels. And so I've just got a free account. I just keep adding the levels.
Yeah, but so all you do is you drop that little laser level in between here, and you're like, yep, that's 2.5, and then you drop it that way, and it's like, oh, that's 3.2. Great, that's the bedroom. And then here's the hallway. That's 500, 700, and then boom, 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 and then all of a sudden you've solid. I like it.
Yeah. So that's a good little tool to use. Most agents in Toowoomba advertise with floor plans these days, so you've got a sort of somewhat of an idea. If they haven't quite got things quite right, well, you've gone and you've taken the measurements, and then you can.
How often do you find that they're wrong? like the floor plan
Often
measurements.
wrong with dimensions, but that's why they put all the little disclosures on there. They always, all the guys that do those floor plans just round up to the nearest 0.1, which can make and break sometimes. Like the good example is one of the projects we're doing at the moment in Rockville. The bathroom, it said it was 1.8 meters, and it's 1.77. So it's a really narrow bathroom. And so, that's, we're not talking a huge amount, but
we're talking this much.
Doesn't make a difference.
You're talking 3 centimeters, right? But 3 centimeters.
3 centimeters, not 30.
Yeah.
All right.
3 centimeters. We're talking 1.77 meters versus 1.8.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We're talking 30 mil. But you think 30 mil means, okay, we can't use a prefab 600 wide vanity now. We have to get a custom vanity built because we don't have that 600 wide space anymore for the vanity. So are we going to have to outlay more money for the cabinet makers? So little things like that we think about.
Wow. But that's, this is where experience comes in, right? Like, there's no way you can walk in as a first investor to say, oh, well, this is 1.7, but it's actually, I've just done the measurement. It's 1.77, not 1.8. Love it. Okay, mate, these tips have been solid so far. I'm loving them.
Renovating wet areas and kitchens. Always replace plumbing and electrical. Don't be a tight ass. It's a few $100 extra. Just do it. Often we see people who try and save money. By the time you gut the kitchen and you sort of, you're stripping out all the plumbing, you get to where the plumbing might run in the wall cabinet and you go, I'll just leave those there. I'll leave those same taps there. Those taps might be 25 years old, 30 years old. Doesn't matter. Just for an extra few $100, replace them so you know that you've got new pipework behind your wall or in your wall cavity. And it's not going to give you grief down the track. Again, this is that long-term investor mindset. If you're going to be holding on to the property, the last thing you want to be dealing with in a couple of years' time is water leaks in your wall cavity and have to rip shit out.
Yeah. And it's 30 years that you're going to own this sucker for. Like, it is. Yeah. Well, if you're doing a long-term buy and hold, 30 years is a very long time. So those things are going to bust. It's the same as doing the air vent, connecting that $150 duct air vent to the thing. Yeah, do it, because in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you're going to have water issues and you're going to spend $2,000 for mold issues. You're going to be the one paying for that because you're in a good location because you decided to buy well.
Short-term pain for long-term gain rather than short-term gain for long-term pain.
Yeah, exactly right.
There you go. When choosing materials, select in stock and get delivered. So rather than you get free delivery, is that what you?
Oh, no, just utilize delivery to site. So again, right, it comes back to if you're renovating, if you've got a vacant property, it's costing you holding costs, it's costing you money. And so for us, we focus on keeping the trades on site as often as we can and utilizing delivery services. So Bunnings, Mitre 10, whoever that is who can deliver a product to site, that means we're saving the tradies time by not having to go out and pick that product up. It can come straight to site. It's there. Early on, we used to go and collect it for them. We'd go and pick the things up, and occasionally I still do with our tiles because the tiling guys, they only run twice a week. So if it's not going to work, I'll just go and pick the tiles up and drop them to site for the guys. But if you think you're going to pay a tradie, it could be 2 or 3 hours out of his day. You've paid him to go and pick up tiles when, the courier might charge you $50, $60, $70. They're en route to do a big delivery anyway. Just pay the delivery fee and just get them delivered to site. Ultimately it'll end up saving you, at least 3 days, I reckon, if you don't have your trades having to run around. And it goes to the next point, which is about getting a skip bin organised. So if you're doing a pretty substantial reno, ripping out kitchens and bathrooms, get a skip bin organised.
Okay. One of the biggest mistakes I got was getting a skip bin and getting the smallest skip bin humanly possible. Yes.
Yeah.
That was my go-to. That was it. It was like, oh, well, I can pay, I forget what the numbers were, but I could pay $100 for this one or $300 for this one. Well, I'm going to get the small one. And a small skip bin does not fit anything. You cannot. Okay, so that's what you're kind of talking about there. Get the largest. Is that your advice as well? Get the biggest one you can.
Get a reasonable size one, at least 6 cube. Usually, by the time we rip out kitchens and bathrooms, you want at least a 6 cube bin. The tradies will put other stuff in there, the tile waste, all that sort of stuff. Again, we got trade accounts here, so we don't, we don't pay for the skip bin for a week. We just get it for as long as we need it. So we usually just keep the skip bin there for the entire project. So that way they don't have to take any waste away. It's just they can just utilise that bin, fill it to the brim, and when the job's done, we take the skip bin away.
Get the laundry trough stolen. Hopefully not.
You
wouldn't put those in the skip bin anyway because they're probably too heavy.
My next point's from my favourite one.
Someone, neighbours adding stuff to the skip bin is more of the issue.
I tell you, it's not neighbours. It's the bloody trades themselves. They'll remember that there's a skip bin at that job. Like, we'll just go and drop it.
They got a toilet in there. This is a 1-bathroom place. How do we have 3 toilets in this bloody skip bin? There's been this bloody plumber. Okay, well let's have a bit of a tear. Let's have a bit of a tear. Yeah, of course. No, let's have a bit of a tear through some of these because we are getting kind of close onto time, and there's been a number of solid questions as well that I'd love to get to. So let's have a bit of a rip through these. Bunnings is not the answer to all your problems.
Yeah. Utilise local trade stores, specifically like plumbing and electrical fixtures. The main reason for that is like warranty repairs and replacement. I don't know about everyone else, but Bunnings is a shit show to deal with when you're trying to claim a warranty on something. And where we can, it's just far better to go to a trade specialty store for that. And usually as well at the plumbing places, they provide, I think, a better product.
Better than Clipsal. Stock standard template plug-in bloody PowerPoints and things. Solid. Okay. Bathroom over shower is often cheaper than a walk-in shower. Yeah. Okay. Know your audience. Now, one of the things is that I hear a lot is about tenancies with kids that a shower over the top of the bath is a little bit difficult for kids. Now, I don't have kids, but how do you think about that?
I would probably think a little bit differently. Our audiences seem to react pretty positively to showers over bath. So we do it often. It's cost effective, as I said there. But you got to know your audience. If you've got an older demographic in a suburb, well, that's where we have issues. We might move away from that and do a walk-in shower only, as opposed to putting a bath in, particularly when it's a smaller bathroom at all, or just no bath. But the reason it's cheaper is, the bath's $150. You pay for a bit of framing, but you sort of save money on tiling, the glass, wet costs, all that sort of stuff's cheaper. So, and then just invest in quality, high-use, high-traffic items, like things like tapware, blinds, floor coverings, things that are going to get a lot of use. I think you need to invest in reasonable quality fittings there.
Oh, absolutely. Like I see so many people doing the cheapest floor covering, like laminate from Bunnings. I was doing a couple of renovations, and you step on some of the cheap stuff and there's a scuff and and then you think, well, that's got to be there for 10 years. It's going to get absolutely torn up. So definitely do not go the cheapest. Don't ever go the cheapest at all.
I've skipped ahead on a couple of the slides because I'm mindful of the time for everyone too. But I thought I'd look at justifying the renovation quickly and what we determine whether or not it's going to stack up.
That's a juicy one. We really should dedicate more time.
Yeah, we should add that at the top.
I'm happy to do a second one later on. But this is our internal formula, how we justify renovation. There's 4 things that we're looking at. Well, what's the client's objective? So we think it's really important to know that. What's the objective of the renovation and who's the target audience? I think that's a separate question to what the client's objective is. So what's the purpose of the reno that you're trying to achieve out of the reno?
Yeah.
And then
it's just because somebody's objective is I want to make 100K from this reno, like you might not be able to do that from that property. So if that's like if you're trying to do a reno in a thing that's already kind of a fairly nice property, you're not going to make 100K from that reno.
Exactly. And then, yeah, so will a renovation provide the client with a cash-on-cash return of at least 10%? So we're talking about rental yields there. I'll go to the next slide in a minute. I've given an example. And then is there a net equity uplift potential of at least 50% of the reno spend? So that's spending $1, making $1.50. That's the minimum that we're sort of looking for. So I did an example here just to sort of show people in that there. In that particular scenario, you can see investment property for $450, the rent appraised before the reno is $420. If we can do a reno for $45K, that's all in cost. So I've factored in holding costs in that as well. The valuation after the reno is $530 and the new rental value is $530 a week. Well, the cash on cash return is that difference in the old rent versus the new. It's $110 a week over 52 weeks. It's a 12.71% cash on cash return. That's good.
Yeah. And
the net equity uplift value is the difference between the equity uplift on the reno spend. So you've got $35K in equity that you've generated through the reno. You've spent $45. Your reno spends about 78% or 78 cents on profit, net profit, sorry, for every dollar that you spent. So it's like $1.78 return. Does that make sense?
So how much equity, so how much did you spend and how much growth did you get out of it?
45K, Joe.
So you spent 45K and you had a net uplift of 35K. So the value went from being all in at 495,000 to having a new valuation of 530.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we're looking at the net equity, the potential usable equity in that property.
But yeah, but was that from how did you get that value? Like, was it from a valuer or just kind of estimates and things?
In this particular, this is just an example, a dummy example. Often what we do is we encourage our guys to go back and get an actual bank valuation.
Yeah,
those bank valuations are often they can, depending on what type, if it's a AVM or automated valuation, they can really go in your favor.
Yeah.
Also, one thing to factor in for a lot of new investors and people that are just buying a property and renovating it is if you just bought the property and you're renovating it straight away, when you do the revaluation, it may come back at pretty much what you paid for it because it's only been such a short amount of time, and the valuer can only look at the most recent sale for this property. So you may have to wait 3 to 6 months until you get some growth uplift from that. So I do see that sometimes where people are, spend $20,000 and expect $80,000 uplift, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to get that.
And probably the other thing to factor in as well is if you've done a renovation, like doing a desktop, which is where somebody physically doesn't go out to a property. You may not because then they can't necessarily look at what you've done to the property. So in that situation, speak to your broker or whoever it is, and ask them to get a valuer to go out to the property, because then they'll say, oh, look, actually they don't know what work you've done to the property. They'll just see it as is, so they won't know what it looked like 3 months ago, whatever it was. They'll then say, there's a property around the corner that's similar to this one. The other one around the corner sold for $545 or whatever it was, or $530. And they'll be like, oh, that's a similar property. I can confidently put that number on this valuation. Whereas if you spent 20K and they may not know that you've done, they'll just sort of the algorithm will do it anyway. So there's maybe a bit of a hack, if that makes sense.
Yep,
Computers don't really know what you spent money on renovating.
This is a couple of past projects that I thought I'd share. I don't know how much more time you want to do.
Crack on.
Some quick figures.
You got real numbers.
Yeah, so the first one left to right, the North Toowoomba property, that was one that we finished earlier this year. You can see those owners paid $259 back in 2013, so they held it for a long time, and they actually lived in the property and moved out. They'd started doing some work, but just didn't really get too far in. So it was pretty original character house when they bought it, timber house. They'd done stumping, roofing, and a bathroom before they engaged us. We estimated the market value, so the sale pre pre-reno about 380K in that area. And we sort of said, well, in its current condition, the rental value is probably 360 a week. So that particular property, we spent 87,000 on for that client.
It's like 20% roughly.
It's pretty, like, this was one of our bigger projects. And again, like, some people might look at that and think it's a small number. For us, this was one of our bigger projects. For that, we did kitchen, we did internal, external repaint, upgraded the rest of the plumbing, obviously not the bathroom, that was done. All the electrical works were upgraded. And this is the property that we did externally, did all the yard work as well, so landscaping. We did a couple of other things as well that weren't perhaps as essential from a rental point of view, but we improved the street presence by sort of bringing back some of the character of this house. That was a big chunk of this cost. So the sort of front facade had been modernised in years gone by, where it sort of didn't look like a character house anymore. And because of where it is, North Toowoomba, a bit of a trendy pocket, we made it look like a character house again. There was, I think it was like 19,000 just tidying up, the front of the house and the side landing as well. So there was a little bit in that. We said the new estimated market value at the time was 540K. I think these guys got a valuation. I should have asked them before this, but I actually think they got a valuation of one at like 590, because next door, which is comparable but had the second bathroom, sold for like high sixes.
Whoa!
So
I was just looking at the So this is a suburb of North Toowoomba, or in the northern suburbs of North Toowoomba? The reason I asked that is
in the suburb of North Toowoomba.
Jeez, because that's I was looking up the median. Medians aren't sort of indication of what a price is, but yeah, that's a great valuation then. Yeah,
and look, to be transparent, I'll tell you, it's the property address is 127B Stewart Street. If you have a look, Stewart Street's the dividing street for North Toowoomba, which is where this house is. Across the road is Mount Lofty, which is a more affluent suburb. So it's like right on that border, right?
Yeah.
Pretty close to Queen's Park. You boys know where that is.
Yeah.
So that one there, we've got it leased now at 525. So a week, which is good rent. That net equity uplift based on our conservative numbers was 73K. And that cash on cash return at 9.86%. So we're pretty close to our 10% return that we chase in that scenario.
Yeah, that's unreal.
That Rockville property, that was another one that we did. 211K purchase back in 2018. You can see there about 62.5K spent on the reno. It's currently leased at 450 a week till January. It's actually for rent if anyone's watching this and wants to rent that property. Tenants are breaking their lease. But the net equity uplift based on, and again, right, this is the owners paid 211 for it way back when. And actually they sold it in April for 435. So they did very well out of this. Net equity uplift before the reno at 62.5K was actually a lot more than that.
Like a real
what's that?
What type of property was it?
Yeah, 1960s sort of chamfer board house.
3-bed.
Special. It was a real ugly duckling, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then that Mount Lofty one, this is a good one to look at. The motivation of that client was more around flipping, short-term hold as an investment. But you'll notice down the very bottom, if you just go straight to the numbers, the cash on cash return wasn't that great, 6.5%. But you can see they bought it in 2021 and sold it just in July. So had it for, 2 years?
How much do you think of that was like the growth of the area rather than the renovation that they've done?
I have no doubt that some of that was growth related, but the owner, like, this is one of those properties they bought. We weren't involved in the purchase. They were just like, hey, we've bought this and we think this would be a great renovator. We just spent a pretty small amount, as you can see, like 68K. We didn't even do a kitchen in this one. It was just a bathroom, internal, external repaint, floor coverings, window coverings, just a few things to fluff it up. A big chunk of that cost, actually, we had to get all the old PVC, porcelain pipes underground. They cracked and shattered, and there was I think it was like $8.5 grand to replace that line. So there was a bit of a cost in that we incurred.
That's a hard call to make.
Yeah, there was 102K of net equity in there. And again, it was always a short-term hold strategy for that owner. They were prepared to ride the market. Definitely some growth in there. But I sold this place. We took it to market at offers over 619, I think, 629.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
And you got for 670.
We had multiple. Everyone told me I was dreaming at over 619. They're like, it's not there. It's not there. And then these people came in, and it vowed too. It vowed at 670. Thank goodness.
Well, yeah, there would have been comps that would have stacked. So yeah, as long as particularly in the rising,
it's an owner-occupied house, so that one now. So
there you go.
Yeah, got some before and after pics.
Is this from? Is that the first one? Is that Stewart Street in North Toowoomba?
No, that's so the top photo there is
Rockville,
the top photos is the one in Mount Lofty.
Yep.
So just a really small bathroom. Mount Lofty is a bit more affluent and an older demographic, and so you can see we.
So you even moved it completely, like you moved the
got rid of the bath as well.
Yeah, deleted the bath and moved everything over to the one wall to make the space feel bigger.
I like that. It's like control.
It's like
Control Alt Delete. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you'll see too that we changed the window in that bathroom as well.
That was an ugly kind of.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, we had to, because you can see in the old photo there the shower sort of head where it is. All the water, someone sitting in there, it was just spraying on the windowsill and it rotted out the windowsill. So we deliberately put a smaller window in, and because we painted the brick, it didn't matter what brick we used to brick up the external side there. And we ended up just painting the brick, and it all sort of tied in nicely.
It does feel like a much larger space.
Yeah, that bathroom, for transparency, like cost-wise, that was about $11,000 bathroom.
Jesus.
Yeah,
11,000.
Yeah. The one below, that's that house in Rockville. Look at that beautiful green bathroom.
Shower
curtains. And then, yeah, that was horrendous.
You love changing a layout here. This is completely different. I cannot believe that was $11,000 to shift the toilet, shift the vanity, and then how much was this before and after of the green one?
Oh, this one was about 7.5. This bathroom.
And you moved the bath. You kept the taps where they are.
Yeah. So notice it's a bit hard to tell. But again, right, so both these houses, both on brick pillar stumps, both with good access underneath. Like the crawl space underneath was really good.
Yep.
And so really when you look at the bottom one, the one in Rockville, for example, all we did is we moved the shower tap 90 degrees and put it on the left-hand wall. Yep. And then the vanity, once the bathroom got gutted, because we just gutted it, it's very easy to just extend your copper pipes around the wall and put the vanity where it ended up. And then same thing with the waste drain. The waste drain's pretty easy to move. When you've got a good crawl space under there, you can just move it easily over. There was no toilet in this bathroom though. Notice that there's no toilet in there. So
what's that wooden thing on the left?
It's a washing basket.
Laundry hamper.
Laundry hamper thing. Yeah.
Yep.
There's another couple there.
Gee, that wooden timber kitchen sort of stuff. They used to be common. I think that was common in the 60s and 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not that.
So that kitchen, believe it or not, the after is just that kitchen repainted and slightly reconfigured.
Surely you did the bench.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. It looks.
Yeah, we got new bench tops, bench tops, and new splashback tiling. We did put a new sink in there, and obviously upgraded the appliances.
Was that carpet? Was that carpet in the kitchen?
No, it was just vinyl, like an old school
it looks like
sheet vinyl. There was a rug in there, I think, in that before photo. Yeah. But see how it had two ovens too in the before photo. Yeah,
one that worked and one that kind of worked.
Yeah, I think one was the cooktop, and it didn't have the working oven, and they put in the other oven.
Yeah.
Anyway, we deleted that oven tower, moved the pantry over, which is what you can see in the after photo, because this was one of those properties where it was originally a 4-bed, 2-bath, and we converted it back to a 3-bed, 2-bar and gave a second living space. And we actually did an open plan design.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that one there worked out really good. That reno spend on that was about 38,000. That was a couple of years ago, that one. And that place there, they paid 360 for it. I think they paid 360 for it. 38k spend, and it's rented for 470.
Yeah.
And then that downstairs one, sorry, the lower image there, the before and after. Well, that was another project. That was literally just putting floor coverings and a repaint in. Like, what a difference!
Yeah, can see that. Yeah, look at it. It's really sort of just the carpet and the painting as well. It's amazing what that does. Here we go.
Yeah.
So last slide.
This is the last one, exactly right. Yeah. So that took before and after. You can see in that instance we kept the bathroom the same layout, the same configuration. This is because the crawl space was a lot tighter underneath the house, so we didn't want to make it too bad for the plumbers.
40 mil.
Yeah, something tight. But all we did is just upgrade what was there. So we did gut the bathroom, but everything sort of stayed in its place. That was the best layout for that bathroom. And then again, the same thing in that bottom image before and after. That's just paint and floor coverings. We did end up putting window coverings in that place too, but they're not in there in that photo.
How much did it cost to do the basics down there on that last one?
The bathroom one, that was a $6,500 bathroom. And then that house beneath there, we did floor coverings, repaint, electrical upgrades, and window coverings for about 15,000 or 16,000 might have been. That was a couple of years ago as well.
And electrical would have been a big part of that, like 5-6K.
No. All we're doing is upgrading the light fittings.
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
Yeah. So we didn't have to move meter boxes or do anything like that. It already had updated circuits on it, so it wasn't a huge expense.
Yeah. Well, one thing to note is, I guess, for people that are chatting to other people about doing these renovations, these numbers that you're talking about, Luke, are unreal. Like to get a bathroom renovation for 10 grand, unheard of. And again,
this is our local market, right? So that's what I mean. Like you really got to work out the area that you're going to invest in or buying in and suss out what those prices look like, because they probably won't look the same. The big saving in all of this too, remember, is we have trade accounts. And so when we organise the product for the client, we don't add a margin to any of that. So it's probably another thing just to think about. Tradies will often add a margin to the product. We don't add the margin. That's how we sort of keep the cost down low for them, and it encourages them to go again.
Yeah. So they can use you again. But that's a massive value add to the people that work with you, right? Because they just aren't. They're going to spend, I don't know, 23,000 like that person was speaking before. But we've got some solid questions coming through. I'd love to get actually your advice on this one. What makes people remove carpets, polish timber floors? Is this the cost reason or a trend?
So a lot of what you saw there is not polished floors; it's a vinyl plank. So we don't polish the floors. We do get rid of the carpet a lot of the time because carpet usually wears pretty like it wears a lot quicker. And we often recommend vinyl plank because it's glued down individual planks of vinyl. Don't mistake these for like that shit you see at Bunnings, which is like a laminated MDF product. That's crap. If you spill the cup of water on it, they swell and they look shit house. An actual vinyl plank from a floor place, they'll be able to handle that water, spillage on them pretty well. And we describe them as rent friendly. And so if you happen to accidentally damage one of the panels, rather than ripping up all the lino if it's sheet vinyl, you just replace, the vinyl plank that's damaged. And the flooring guys can do that. They can come in and replace one plank.
This is where another question comes in. Question I have: the tiles and the way to lay vinyl planks. Do you just lay or glue them? How hard is the process of putting it all together?
Didn't you try and do that, Joe, at one stage, or did you do something similar? With you?
I don't know. I've done it. Yeah, I've done it. I did it in my camper vans. I did it in my camper vans.
I thought you did it
laid
for a
behind
job or
plane.
something one time. You did it for a day, and then you.
Oh no,
you realized
my first job was laying carpets. So I did the whole carpet laying, and then I was like, wow, this is really. I don't like this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And moved into property.
No, we recommend pulling up the tile before you lay the vinyl plank down, because the vinyl plank needs to go down. They put a like a masonite sheet down usually first before they lay it down. In what we do, because again, I remember a lot of the homes in my area have like a timber floor, but if there's tiles down in an area, because there's plenty of houses that have tiles over the timber floors, we don't recommend putting the vinyl plank down on top. They'll put a masonite sheet down or something and then glue the vinyl plank to that, and it gets like an echoey sound when you're walking on it. You can sort of just hear little pockets of air under there, and it sounds shit house, and I think it looks a bit crap too.
Yeah, and also then your boards, your skirting boards. You do end up losing some of it too. Yeah. Okay, that's a very good tip. What else we got? We got are single story houses best to renovate, or double stories just as good?
Comes down to knowing your market, I think. Like I said, if the market loves double story houses and there's appeal for them, then maybe they are better. Again, in what
I think
we
they're
do,
harder. They've
single
got to be
stories.
harder generally, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely harder to do. Like I said, remember, if you've got a kitchen and beneath that you've got a bedroom and you want to reconfigure that whole kitchen, well, it's likely you're going to have to pull the ceiling down, right, to be able to access the plumbing under there. So that's another cost that you wouldn't get if it was just a single-story dwelling.
Yeah. Here we go. This is an interesting one. I think maybe, Joe, you need to do this for any future. But what does installing cameras do, though, anyway? Because, like, it's not like, what do you know the people that stole your stuff? What are you going to, I mean, I don't know. Like, what does it just deter people, or? Yeah.
Oh, look. So just to clarify a couple of things, we're not the building company, right? We just talk. We sort of play in the Reno with the investor. We talk about that stuff, and then we engage all the trades independently. So they're all licensed people. It's up to them if they want to protect their tools and want to leave them behind. We know that most of the guys take it with them when they leave. They pack up and take it when they leave. Sometimes they might leave things like drop saws and those sorts of things there, but that risk is on them. They sort of accept that risk.
Yeah, that's good. And then you're not liable whatsoever. Where I got in trouble was where I bought all the material and then dropped it there. But one thing to think about is if you have blinds or don't have blinds. If you have blinds, people won't know it's a renovation site. If there's a skip out the front, there's no blinds on the windows, people can look straight in. Oh, no one's in here. Oh, look at all that free stuff. Great. It'll go.
That's a great point, actually. Often we leave the blinds up until we're ready to actually replace them. That's a good point. And then we just try and make a habit of leaving a light on in the house and changing it up. So, not just leaving the same light on all the time. So it just looks like there's someone there. I mean, sometimes it's not possible if it's only got a carport, like they'll know, but like I said, it's a gutted house. There's not usually much good stuff to steal in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Do you ask tradies what qualifications they have? I mean, I'd just probably want to understand the license for probably a start, but do you ask them about?
Definitely. Again, and because of what we do, right, because we're a property management business first and forehand, anyone that does work for us has to provide us with copies of their licenses, registrations, insurances, etc. So we know if they've got the correct qualifications, and we always ask them for their updated insurances as well. So, we definitely check that and make sure that you get copies of all the documents too when they do works. I don't know. I can only speak to my local market, but when they do works here, someone messaged me privately then lead up to this. I don't know if he was trying to work out if we were doing the wrong thing or not. It sort of felt a bit passive, but he was saying, do you get all the permits? And we don't necessarily require council approvals for a lot of the work we do because we're just remodeling internal footprints, but we do have to often submit what they call Form 4s, notifiable works, that the tradies lodge all that stuff, but we always request copies of those documents. So if ever there's an issue, we've got copies of them. Waterproofing is, I think, a Form 16. So when the guys do the bathroom, we want to get that Form 16. If ever there's an insurance issue down the track, we want to make sure we've got all the documentation.
Yeah, I know. I've been learning more about these waterproof. I've seen it pop up in a lot of groups. So I'm like, oh, there you go. Well, kind of like it's either been done or it hasn't been done. If the bathrooms, but yeah, where the renovations have been done recently, yeah, makes sense to kind of ask for it if you're buying something.
It protects the owner too, like on the resale side of things as well. If there's like during the sale process, sometimes people ask those questions. Oh, was this approved? Did you have the paperwork? And we go, yeah, here it is. Here it all is. Yeah, everything's been done.
This is an issue on asbestos. I don't know. Like I feel a little sort of when we talk about this, because some people say, oh, it's okay. Like, oh, I don't know. I just
look, heaps of houses we deal with contain asbestos in some capacity. Ceilings most commonly, but
all through Australia.
Walls. Yeah, exactly. That green bathroom that you saw a couple back, that was an asbestos bathroom when it got taken out. We've got a guy that does asbestos removal. So he's an independent contractor. That's all he does. It's just asbestos removal. And so if we think that there's an issue where the house might contain asbestos, we call him in. And he's good. He'll just tell us, yep, that's asbestos, or no, it's not.
How much does one of the things is on one of my first renos, I didn't knock down this building because I assumed it was asbestos. Turns out there's only a small portion of it that's asbestos, and I should have knocked it down because I would have added a lot more value, but I just didn't end up doing it in the end. How much is asbestos? Like, how should we think about it? Is it the end of the world if we find asbestos, and what's the cost to remove it?
Oh, I don't like answering that question, eh? It's like, is it the end of the world? That's easy to determine. Are sort of we and our trade network comfortable to work with it? Yeah, they are. Because we have that licensed asbestos removal guy. He'll come in and do it. Yep. The cost,
so how much was it to remove the bathroom, for instance?
An average bathroom's about $3,500 to dump the asbestos. So it's I say reasonable, in the scheme of things. We don't usually, when they do it, they'll only do the walls, and if there's any asbestos material in the floor, they might do the floor as well. We don't usually rip out the ceilings if they're asbestos, because often the holes, if the house got an asbestos ceiling, the whole ceiling's asbestos in our area, so we just don't touch them. But then, like our electrician, for example, if he's going to put in light fittings, he's comfortable to work with asbestos because he's got, special drills or something like that where it sort of collects all the dust and does something with water and crap like that. Like, he's comfortable to do it. So, yeah, it just depends. You've got to have the right people around you. But anytime that's happening, we make sure that no other trades don't, they're not on site either.
Yeah, a good comment here is if it isn't broke, don't fix it. If you don't disturb it, it should be fine. I actually went into an entirely burnt out house in South Australia when I was doing a little boots on the ground adventure, and the whole place was absolutely ripped by this fire. There was it was like a drug house that got on fire, and but the walls in the laundry and the bathroom where there was all the asbestos were absolutely fine. Like, the stuff lasted forever and was not affected by the fire at all. Like, this stuff is very hard wearing. Where the issue comes is when you start to break it up and it becomes fibrous and it goes into the air. So just don't go smashing holes in it. You'll be all right.
My dad's having a whinge. He's apparently watching the stream, and I haven't mentioned his Mackay journey once.
How about your favorite? Who's your favorite sibling, by the way? And that was let's not. We won't get into that.
Who's your favorite? What's the Mackay journey? I feel like there's something there.
That was probably the thing that got me interested. My old man, this quick one, because I'm mindful of Jeff's style here, but the quick version of it is that that's probably what got me into being interested in Reno. My old man bought a character house, and it was our family home, so it was an absolute labour of love. But it was like a 2-bedroom shitbox Queenslander. This is going back in the early 2000s.
That's probably not how he sold it to the missus.
No, he sold the vision. And look, they made it something amazing in the end. It became a 6-bedroom, 2-bathroom Queenslander with the pool and the shed and stuff.
Bloody
It'll be
hell.
coming on the market soon. If anyone wants to buy an investment property in Mackay, that's just telling you.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
So-
but yeah,
so-
it was
so-
just an absolute labour of love for him.
Right. Good story. Okay.
This one's an interesting one. So for all this stuff you've done, I think I know the answers. I think we asked this. Is there a management fee for the renos, and what's the typically look like?
Well, yeah. How can people learn more? Because, the thing is for me, like this story that you've been telling me is I do renovations throughout all of Australia, and I've never found a renovation. I've never seen a bathroom for $8,000. Like it's because of your connections, because of your trade access, because of all of that, that I think you're able to get these kind of amazing prices, and people love working with you because you provide those trades consistent workflow, and they're like, well, I'm going to use Luke because he's the best at what he does, and he pays me well, and he pays me consistently, and it all works well. But yeah, how does it kind of work? Because from a management fee for renovations, how should we think about this as an investor?
Yeah, so we do charge for the service, right? So if we're going to go about coordinating
Of course.
we charge a fee. The other thing I didn't mention, we do have an interior designer that we work with as well, who goes out and picks all the materials and those sorts of like tile selection and tapware and that sort of shit. I don't get caught up in that; it doesn't interest me. But we charge a fee. We pay her fee, so she invoices us, and we pay her fee. But we charge a fee. It's depending on the size. Look, I know I'm going to say it, and then people are going to be like, "You're charging too little." It's under $4,000 to do a big job. I think the reason we keep the fee relatively competitive is a couple of things. Remember, my primary business is property management, and so naturally we want the properties to manage. That's the first thing. We like to see people do well out of it, so we don't want to, strip all the potential profit out of it. And ideally, we'd like to encourage them to go again. Now, when I say encourage them, we're never forcing anyone to do anything. But if they sort of get a taste of success with it and they're inclined to, hey, this worked out really well, it doesn't even have to be in Toowoomba. We don't care. Our vision as a company is we want to see everyday people become wildly successful property investors. I love hearing people's journey through investment and helping them get there. Bigger picture for a moment, if I can do a quick little plug to my business, is I don't want to just stop in Toowoomba. Eventually,
where to
I'd like
next?
I feel like I won't leave Queensland. You can't operate anywhere else when you've got a real estate license. It's all state specific.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always
mutual
liked that
recognition.
Ipswich
You'll be
market.
fine.
Ipswich market's always been interesting in and around that area, mainly because of the renovation potential. A lot of older properties there. That Bundy market would have been fun, but I don't know if that's, might have missed the market on that.
Gone too much.
Yeah. And I feel like Gympie's potentially got some potential, eh?
Gympie.
It's like, again, from my business model, right? As an investor, is it the best place? Well, I'll leave that to the experts like yourselves as buyers agents. But for people who are looking around there, north of the Sunshine Coast, it's a more affordable market. There seems to be a lot of older properties there that could do with some improvement. Potentially somewhere in that region, there could be an opportunity there.
Interesting. Okay. Right, that's solid advice. Well, I mean, the ROI is there clearly because you're able to kind of strategically plan it. But it does seem like you may be getting beaten on price. We've got someone here that does. I've done a bathroom for $1,500. You don't need to spend $7,000. Is that your dad? That's probably probably your dad. So
she does.
You think you're good, Luke? You need to go to Mr. Old Luke. You haven't factored in inflation, mate.
Back in
okay. So, where do people go? How do we learn more about you? How do we get in contact? This has been an unreal session. There it is.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd love to sit there and say follow us on our socials. The truth is we're just not active on there. I'm too busy with this Reno stuff. It's the honest truth. We should post a lot of before and afters. We used to do video content, but it was a hard thing. It's expensive to produce, and quite frankly, we don't need to necessarily market this service anymore. We have enough traction. We've got another 8 properties in the pipeline. We're sort of committed at this stage until probably February next year on Reno projects. So if anyone wants to buy property next year, come and talk to us. Yeah.
So we'd love to have you, but we don't.
Yeah.
Well,
we're pretty,
I mean, that's the right way to do business. I think if you try and be you get 1,000 people in, you're gonna pump through the volume. It's not going to be a good output for the client. But when you charge such a little bit and provide good outcomes, it's ideal. Well done.
Yeah.
That's off to you.
Thanks for coming on, Luke. I appreciate you sort of sharing. Like, you put together those slides and you put a lot of effort into. We were going back and forward, and I was read all the stuff you put in. So I appreciate you. You and I have been chatting for probably, I don't know, what, 3 to 6 months, maybe maybe longer.
Yeah, something like that.
You messaged me and telling me about all your kind of what you've been doing. So
I did try and sell you a bad deal.
No. I don't think it was a bad deal.
No. Well, it wasn't. No. Someone bought it, and they're renovating above what we did already on that deal. Wow. I'll tell you about that off air.
Yeah, here we go. The behind the green room conversation. So, yeah. Joe, and would you want to plug it? Should we talk about No, we don't talk about the newsletter on live, so we just did.
No, we don't.
So what's the number one rule? No. Anyway, so Joe, finish it. Bring us home, mate. Bring us home. You're the one that does this, so I can't finish off.
Oh, do I? Oh, you started up. I finish it off. Thank you very much for coming, Luke. Unreal.
Thanks,
no, that was a great session. Renovation is very important. It's a way to make a lot of money, but it's also a way to maximize your borrowing ability. I think. Not borrowing ability, equity and cash. If you can do a renovation, you can add value. You can get a better rent. You can improve not just your borrowing capacity because you're getting better income, but also your capital growth. So thank you very much, Luke, for that. You're unreal. Everyone's loving it. Thank you very much. Well done, Luke. Okay, let's go buy a renovation property. See you guys later.
All right.
Have a good one.
See you guys. Take care.